them up to the stage, it's okay? That microphone will go?
Good evening, everyone. We all have this page in front of us. The topic this evening is about Moshiach. It's somewhat based on a regime of the Rabbi that was published this year on Chag HaSukkos, on this posuk from Mishlei, from the end of Sefer Mishlei. The last part of the posuk is the title of the page in front of us. It reads, Shlosha heiman niflu mimeni v'arba'a lo yada'atim. There are three things Shlomo HaMelech says, the wisest of all men says at the end of his book of Proverbs, there are three things that are wondrous from me, and there are four that I don't know. As the Rabbi explains it in the Rishima, the four that I don't know is a much higher level, a higher, a deeper, a more unknowable category even than the three that are wondrous from me. There's the concept of not knowing at all relates to the very, very highest level of the Sfirot and the very, very highest level of the soul, which is called Reisha de lo yada v'lo yada, the unknowable head, which has to do with emunah pshuta, with simple, pure and simple faith in the soul, which is even higher than what in general in Hasidus is referred to as Atik or Pnisaket or other names, of which is said three things are wondrous from me. One of the things that Chazal themselves interpret as corresponding to these the two parts of the verse, there are three things that are wondrous from me and four that I do not know, are the three components of the holiday of Pesach, which is Pesach, Matzah, and Maror. Of those three, it says, Shlosha himan niflu'u mimeni. Verses, or in contrast to the four mitzvahs, the four ingredients, so to speak, of the holiday of Sukkot, the four Arbat HaMinim, the Lulav and the Esrog and the Hadassim and the Aravot. There's just one example that we're not going to get into this particular correspondence this evening, but Chazal in different ways interpret the three and the four, and the four are deeper than the three. Obviously, if there's a correspondence or a correlation between 3 and 4, it must relate in some way to what we say, Shlosha mi yodea, Arba mi yodea, who knows 3, who knows 4, the 3 patriarchs and the 4 matriarchs. In fact, the expression here in the original Lashon of the Pasuk in Mishlei, there's a ksiv and a kri. Sometimes a word is written in one way and is written in a different way. So the way that this word arba, 4, is written, it's written with the alta hey at the end. It's written arba, which is the shon nekevan, the feminine, as though the 4 are 4 feminine categories. We read it arba'ah in the masculine. Afterwards, the 4, which is either, once more, it's written in the feminine. The arba, it's just that we read it the kri, which is usually closer to the pshat, the kri, the way it's read, not the way it's written. The way it's written is usually the soul, the secret. And the way it's read is the pshat. And it's read in the masculine. And since afterwards it refers to 4 ways, the word way, derech, this is what we're going to talk about this evening, is also, as there's a whole sugi at the beginning of Maseches Kiddushin, that the word derech, way, is sometimes masculine, even in the Torah itself. It's one of those words which can either be masculine or feminine. And so once more, here there is a type of category, this level of 4, which is deeper than the 3, is not either, but actually both of them must be true. It's both masculine, but deeper than the masculine, it's feminine. So that even further strengthens the correspondence to the 4 fathers and the 3 fathers and the 4 mothers, the 4 matriarchs. And since this is going to have to do with Moshiach, as we'll explain, that the secret of the 4 is the 4 parts of this unknowable head, which is the level, the source of the origin of the soul of Moshiach, and has to do with the way we have to learn and have to try to develop our consciousness to reach a state of these 4 ways, and through these 4 ways to, as the Rabbi wants, to help open up our eyes and to bring Mashiach now. That's what Mirza Hashem we're going to speak about now. So what are the 4 unknowable ways? The 4 unknowable ways, first of all, in Kabbalah, that must mean 4 different levels, all in a state of simple faith. That's what unknowable means, radla, reisha dvoit yada, the unknowable head, which is the origin of malchut. Malchus has a deeper, Malchus is the last of all of the 10 Sfirot, but its origin in Kesser, in the crown, the superconscious, is deeper and higher than all of the other powers of the soul. What are the Sfirot, the powers of the soul? All of the other powers of the soul, excepting Malchut, have a origin, in the terminology of Hasidus, especially the Rebbe Rashab, it's called He'elem she'yeshno b'metziut. It's concealed. Every conscious power has a superconscious origin, but that superconscious, that unconscious, whether superconscious or unconscious, is referred to as He'elem she'yesh b'metziut. It's concealed, but it's there. It's present. It's existent. It's to be found. Metziut means to be found. It's there someplace. The parable for this throughout Hasidut is called Shalhevet B'Gachel. It's like a flame inside the coal. The coal is not yet extinguished. It has not died. It appears on the surface. You don't see the flame at all. The coal appears to be dark on the surface. But the flame is there. You just have to blow hard on the coal, and the flame will emanate and jump, as it were, out of the seemingly dark and black coal. That's called He'elem. That is always the mashal, the parable in Hasidut for He'elem she'yeshno b'metziut. Whereas Malchut has a infinitely deeper origin in the superconscious, with this level of Radla, Reisha Dvoit Yada, which is referred to always as He'elem she'ino b'metziut. Because it's so it's concealed to the extent that it's unidentifiable even in the unconscious of the soul. It's not there. It's not there, it's not anywhere. Maybe it's everywhere, but it's not anywhere. He'elem she'ino b'metziut. What is the parable for that? Just like the parable for He'elem she'yeshno b'metziut, shalhevet b'gachelet, shalhevet kshura b'gachelet. In the same way, the parable throughout Hasidut for He'elem she'ino b'metziut is called the esh b'tzura halamish, fire in a flint stone. That the fire is not there at all. You just have to hit hard, two stones one against the other, and a spark of fire will emerge. And once it'll jump, as it were, out of the stone. But there's no fire existent within the stone. It's just pure potential. It's called yicholet. There are also in potential, different levels of potential. But it's pure, non-existent potential, which is latent in the essence of the soul. That is the state of Malchut before Malchut is revealed. What's about all of the other powers of the soul, love. If a person does not experience love in his consciousness, it's there. It's concealed, but it's there in the unconscious. Whereas a kingdom, Moshiach, which is Malchus, so long as we don't see it, it's there, but it's not there. It's there in a state of not being there at all. But it's even more absolutely omnipresent, that it's unidentifiable. But the only way that we can contact that is through ourselves reaching this level, reaching deep into our souls until the level of Reisha Lo Yada V'Lo Yada, which once more expresses itself purely as Emunah Pshuta. As pure and simple faith, Ani ma'amin be'emunah shleima b'biat HaMashiach. And once we're in this source itself of emunah pshuta, which is the ma'ala mitam v'dat, it's way, way infinitely above any consciousness of tam v'dat. There itself are to be analyzed, as it were, 4 different ways. What are those 4 different ways? Arba'a lo yadatim. These 4 different ways, which the Ktiv once more relates to them as feminine ways. The Kri calls them masculine ways. What are they? They're parables. Shlomo HaMelech himself gives the parables. The parables are, the first is called Derech HaNesher B'Shamayim, the way of the eagle in the heaven, in the sky. The second way is derech nachash alei tzur, the way of the snake on the rock. It's as it were sliding across a rock. The third way is derech oniya v'levyam, the way of the ship in the heart of the sea. And the fourth way is derech gever ba'alma, the way of man in maiden or a woman. So what are these four ways? Once more, these are the four unknowable ways, which once more this concept of unknowability, as there is a yeshiva from the Rabbi himself explains, is way, way deeper than even something which is wondrous. It's not even a wonder, it's not even a pele. It's something else altogether. It's unknowable. As explained in Kabbalah, this called Pnimius Atik consists itself of four different levels, which are the Keter and the Chokhmah, the Binah, and the Dat of Atik. And Atik Yomin, which is usually this terminology of Chassidut, which I hope most of us are somewhat familiar with. In general, Chassidut is taught to be pleasure. Once more, unconscious, the unconscious or superconscious pleasure principle, as it were, of the soul. But in that inner dimension of the crown is the unconscious, which is Atik. There are those sfirot, as every entity in Kabbalah itself consists of 10 sfirot. There are those sfirot from Chesed down, which become known, or once more in a state of potential, to connect to other conscious powers of the soul, and thereby itself to become experiential. It is possible to experience pleasure in wisdom when a person has a new insight. So there is latent, and this can be experienced, the innate gishmak. Maybe one of the favorite, most gishmak words of the Rabbi was always gishmak itself. To experience the gishmak in seichel, or the gishmak in the midas, in love and fear. And sort of the Geshmak, even Kabbalah soul, one of the greatest things about the Rebbe is that maybe one of the greatest topics of all is that a Yid in his Kabbalah soul Malchus Shamayim, in his simple and all committed will and giving over of will to do Hashem's will alone, he must experience that Geshmak. That has to do now with the Chodesh Shvat and Yud Shvat. Yud Aleph Shvat is coming up, the month of Osher, just like the Yom Haledes, the birthday of the Rebbe. It's Shevet Osher, that Osher means Geshmak. And the Rebbe also uses to explain that his own birthday, which is his own mazel, has to do with the experiencing the Geshmak in Kabbalah soul itself. And so whatever level of the soul one can experience, the inner time, that means that's coming from the lower levels of Atik. Whereas these four higher levels of Atik, which are the Keter and the Chokhmah, the Binah, and the Dat of Atik, in this world are non-experiential. The fact that they're essentially non-experiential, that's just like what we said before, that the potential, the latent potential that they correspond to is He'elem she'ino b'metziut. It's a type of concealment and unconsciousness which has no identification, no specific identification in this world yet. When Moshiach himself will appear, we call it mamash, to all of us, to all of Am Yisrael, it says Pnimius Abba, Pnimius Atik, then this level of Pnimius Atik, which is Radla with all of its four unknowable ways, will become revealed to all of us. It's exactly the revelation, the opening of the eyes that the Rabbi is talking about. To be able to see these four unknowable ways. What is the pshat of these four? And these are four parables of Shlomo HaMelech. As we said before, one of the things that the Chazal themselves relate to these four ways are the four meaning species of the lulav and the esrog. Now we're going to talk about the origin of these four ways in the soul, as how to once more to try to reveal to ourselves what this means for us. And even though it's unknowable, if we can try to make it a little bit knowable, which is paradoxical, but that's just exactly what we have to do to bring Moshiach, to try to know the absolutely unknowable in ourselves, then this will itself constitute the opening of our eyes and seeing Melech HaMashiach and the Gula HaMitzvah Shlema. The simple pshat of these four unknowable ways is that as soon as it takes place, its footprints, as it were, quote unquote, its impressions are totally disappear. There's no way to extrapolate what happened. This is the pshat. What does it mean, derech hanesher b'shamayim? As soon as the eagle is flying through the sky, you don't know, you can't predict. First of all, it's unpredictable, totally unpredictable, what path the eagle is going to take. That's one aspect. And the second thing is, as soon as it's over, nothing happened to the sky, and you don't see, there's no impression whatsoever, no footprints. You know, the coming of Moshiach has to do with footprints. It says that before you see the Moshiach, you see footprints of the Moshiach. But once by the simple pshat of these verses, all of these four parables, metaphors are that as soon as it takes place, it vanishes. It disappears. So you think of an eagle in the sky, or a snake on a rock, or a ship in the heart of the sea, or even the union of derech gever ba'alma. It happens, and as though it disappears, it was never there. This has to do with the way of Mashiach, that something happened, something was revealed as though momentarily, and then it appeared to vanish. And there are the four types of this phenomenon. And obviously each of these four types of this phenomenon means something else. This phenomenon, this is called the unknown, that's what it means, an unknowable way. The concept unknowable way means both that it's unpredictable, but even more so that you can't it's untraceable. There's no way to trace it, even in retrospect. There's no way to extrapolate what happened. Was ist geschehen? And can it wissen? Can't know what happened even. Not only can't you know what's going to happen, but there's no way to know what happened. So what we're trying now to do is to get people to think and to get into this thought space, or this head that we're not trying to describe or to feel. This unknowable head that itself possesses these four metaphors. So once more, in the terminology of Kabbalah, these are called the four higher sfirot of Atik, which constitute this Reisha de lo yada v'lo yada. To explain that the Ratla has to it four different levels, which are the Keter and the Chokhmah and the Binah and the Da'at of Radlo. This is the terminology of Kabbalah. Meaning that the metaphor of Derech Hanesher Bashamayim, the way of the eagle in the sky, is the Keter of Radha. We said before that this is a latent potential pleasure which is not yet experiential in this world. That's why the only way to lead full to grasp it is through simple faith. The simple faith always has to do with something which will only be revealed in the future, which right now I can't realize, I can't reveal, but I believe in it. And the fact that, what does it mean that I believe in something? To believe in something is to have a hold on something which will, and due to the fact that I believe in it, to the power of my faith itself, of our faith, the faith of the Jewish people over all the generations of our history, the belief is the whole that it will happen, and what's more, the infinite pleasure inherent in it, the infinite geschmack which is going to be revealed in it will become revealed, will become experienced. But right now, the only way that I have to relate to it, the only hold that I have on it is simple faith. Meaning that the only person that can really believe is the person who has this paradoxical sense of the far, as it were, future, which the stronger the faith and the stronger the bitachon, the more not just hold, the more pull, the more power he has to pull the future into the present. That's why if we really believe strongly in something, this is called conscious determination. Through the consciousness of the faith, we bring it closer, we bring the future closer to ourselves. Obviously, it's clear that only a Yiddish neshama, only a Jew who is connected with existentially, really, the Chedek Elokah Mamash is connected to the future. Of him, we can say, of us, we can say that we believe because we're connected to it. And through our faith, the faith is the expression of the connection that we have to the future was not yet revealed to the present, in our present, but through the faith itself we bring it, we pull it into our present. Well, this is, again, a general definition of what Radlo and what faith means. But something which is unknowable means it's unexperiential now, but through my faith that it's going to be, and it's going to be revealed, and it's going to be revealed Techov Miad Mamish, that connection actually pulls it from the future into the present. Right, so now that was a general description of what Radlo means. The faith is called, the ultimate, highest level of faith has to do with this concept, which again, the greatest foundation, even more than the geschmack of the Rabbi, is the power of conscious determination. Through faith. Faith, which is, the stronger the faith becomes, the more the faith turns into, the emunah turns into bitachon, which is ein kana makom, la'azbir ba'arichut, the exact relationship and difference in the Torah of the Rabbi himself between emunah and bitachon. But the stronger the whole becomes, the faith becomes bitachon, and then the conscious determination actually makes the thing, which is unknowable, happen. So again, that was general. Now, it has 4 levels to it. The Keter is called the eagle here. The way of the eagle in the sky. The Chokhmah is the snake on the rock. The Binah, the Keter is this is the crown of the Pnimius of the crown. Because what we're talking about now is Pnimius of the Pnimius of the crown. The Pnimius of Keter in general is Atik. Now we're talking about Pnimius Atik, which is the Pnimius of the crown. And now we're talking about one more level of Pnimius, which is the Keter of that itself. The Keter of Radlo is the way of the eagle in the heaven, in the sky. The Chokhmah, the second Sphira, is the Chokhmah of Radlo, is the snake on the rock. And the Binah of Radlo is the ship in the sea. And the Dat, just as it says, V'ha'adam yadat chava ishto, the Dat of Radlo is derech gever ba'alma. Right, so before we proceed, at this point it's already necessary to try to bring it down, all the way down, into very, very simple and concrete terminology. And this is the essence of what we're just going to try to meditate upon, to convey this evening. A Yiddish neshama, as we mentioned before, which is the beginning of Tanya, we're just coming out of Chof Dalet Teves, which is the author of the Alter Rebbe, the Bala Tanya. And this is 200 years to the publication of the Sefer Tanya. We know that one of the greatest things that it says there in the beginning of chapter 2 is that the Nefesh Hashem is the second soul of a Jew, is a Chedek Elokam Imam Mamash. It's an actual part of God. A real, actual part of God, Mamash. Everything which is essential to a Jew, a Yiddish neshama, essential characteristics of a Jew. As we're going to explain what it means, the most essential characteristics that you and I and every Jew possess. Those essential characteristics must reflect the fact that a Jew is a shtikel God. That's what Hasidim used to say, is a little part of God. And those essential characteristics are at the level, just like we know that the Rabbi always used to quote the Morinayim of Chernobyl, that every Yid, from the Baal Shem Tov, he brought it in the name of the Baal Shem Tov, that every Yid has a spark of Moshiach, just like it says in Tanya that every Yid has a spark of Moshe Rabbeinu. So in the same way, every Yid has a spark of Moshiach, and these sparks have to be revealed individually, and when enough sparks are revealed individually, then the general, the all-inclusive Moshiach will appear. But those sparks, once more, have to do with this level, these four unknowable ways. We know that the Shulchan Aruch also begins with metaphors of animals. The Alter Rebbe in the Shulchan Aruch, of the Alter Rebbe, begins like the Tur, not like the Shulchan Aruch of the Beis Yosef. That just begins with Gibor Kari, with the last of the four. But the Alter Rebbe begins like the Tur in his Shulchan Aruch, that quotes all of the four of Yehuda Matei Meimer. Having asked Noam Ratzki Tzvi, Kalka Nesher, Gibor Kari, all of the four images of animals to serve Hashem with all the intensity, all the Eris detail, Ober, the Kelim, the Tikkun of animals. That's the way the Shulchan Aruch begins. But here we have another series of metaphors, not all of which are animals. The first two are animals, an eagle and a snake. It's not like they're in Pirkei Avos. The eagle is in both places. Here it begins with an eagle as the highest, then it becomes a snake, then it becomes a ship, and finally it becomes a man and a woman. And these four are the Keser and the Chochmah and the Bina and the Das of Rabbi. So the first thing is now to try to make it concrete. Meaning that since we, every Jew, each one of us has a spark of Mashiach, each one of us has a Chedek Elokim Mamash. So it means that these things must be essential characteristics, just like the Alter Rebbe also in Tani Kadisha, in chapter 1, he says that even the Nefesh Bahamis of a Jew has essential characteristics which identify him as being a Jew, even in his exterior soul. That the three things that Chazal say about it that are signs, that are definite signs of a Jew, Rachmonim, Baishonim, Gimel Chasodim, in the end of chapter Aleph in Sefer Tanya, he says that these are really essential Jewish characteristics that pertain even to the Nefesh Bahamis. So it must kol shekin v'kavachomer. This is another topic in the Chazal that we'll not get into now. I mean, even there are many that ask the question. In different places in Tanya itself, it appears that those characteristics also must apply to the Nefesh Elokis, not just the Nefesh Bahamis, as he says there at the end of chapter 1. We won't enter into this, but just as there are essential characteristics of a Jew that identify you and me as being a Jew, that we must reflect these characteristics of being merciful and shameful, positive shame, and being good-hearted, Gemei Chasodim, there obviously must be essential characteristics of a Jew at the level of the spark of Mashiach, at the level of Arba'a lo Yedatim. Because every Jew must have these four unknowable ways which nonetheless reflect themselves very most concretely as characteristics of a Jew. Again, this is the point that we're trying to get across this evening. What are those four things? So if we look here at our, the first thing on the right are the four levels of Radlo. As it says there, Keser de Radlo, Chochma de Radlo, Bina de Radlo, Das de Radlo. Then, immediately the imagery of Shlomo HaMelech. V'arba'a lo yadati, what are they? Derech HaNesher B'Shamayim, Derech Nachash HaLeitzur, Derech Oniya B'Lev Yam, V'derech Gever B'Alma. Now, the next column. And this is the essence of what we're trying to speak of. We're trying to use once more, to use very, very concrete terminology. There is the epitome of Yiddish gaiva, of Jewish pride. I am a proud Jew. In Hasidus, we always talk about bitul. You have to have bitul for Hashem. There's something about Jewish pride that we're going to try to explain. The Jewish pride is the keser of Radlo. Jewish pride, being I am a proud Jew, which is something that we have to try and reinforce. And we're trying to speak of Jewish characteristics this evening, which in ourselves reflect Mashiach, reflect our own spark of Mashiach. And by assuming these characteristics, we will, in Meretz Hashem, be zeicha merit to do our part. Obviously, we have a part to bring about the total revelation of Melech HaMashiach. And once more, these are things which can become dimmed. They have to be brought out. They have to be reinforced. Chazak, chazak. Chazal themselves say four things need chizuk. Number one is with this concept, and there are many Hasidic stories, maybe will tell us something. I am a proud Jew. The word gaiva is usually always a negative term. Speak about gaiva. But now we're dafka using this term to reflect the very, very highest level of a Jew in his nefesh elokis, not his nefesh bahamis. There's a ga'ava Yehudit, Jewish pride. We're going to have to try to understand what that Jewish pride means, or how we can sense. Just like, going back to Sefer HaTanya, it says that it takes usually 20 years of sincere, devoted labor, Avodas Hashem, that a person can recognize in himself whether his characteristics are those, or the true ones which are serving Hashem, or false, deceitful characteristics. He thinks he's at a certain level, but really is deceiving himself. As the Kol HaSefer HaTanya, they used to say, all of Chassidus, the all Tanya in one phrase is Zainit Kenar, don't deceive yourself. Don't think that you have something when it's a false imitation. So obviously all these things can have false imitations to them. But the true backbone of these properties are what define a Jew to be a Jew, and not just what define a Jew to be a Jew, as we'll try to explain what define a Jew to be Mashiach, to be a spark of Mashiach, helping all of us to bring about the revelation of Mashiach. Once more, number one, the eagle, the derech hanesher b'shamayim, is ga'ava Yehudit. Number two, the snake represents Yiddish chokhmah. As we'll explain, Jewish wisdom. Again, this correlates in Kabbalah to the wisdom of Radlo. The crown principle is, as whoever understands Kabbalah properly, the crown principle is the super-ego of the soul. It's either good or bad. But crown, just like a king has a crown, what is the crown? The crown is the super-ego in terminology of psychology. This is just the way it's explained in Kabbalah. The world of Toh that broke apart is because it was all crowns, it was all ego, all anayim loch. It was unrectified ego, unrectified super-ego, anayim loch. But the crown of Mashiach is the rectified pride of a Jew. Then there's something special about the wisdom of a Jew. It's obviously, definitely, everybody knows that there's Yiddish Chochmah. And there's something about a Jew that he has to be so cunning and so shrewd. Sometimes we speak about foxes, like Rabbi Meir was also a Moshiach figure, and Chazal had 300 parables of foxes. Also, there's something about the cunningness and shrewdness of a fox in some way reflects Jewish cunning. But there's something even more than that, which is the cunning, as we'll explain, of a snake. And that's the deepest level of Jewish wisdom. And we're just now going through the words without yet really trying to explain what they mean. The next, which is the way of the ship in the heart, in this phrase, in Mishlei, Shlomo HaMelech says, Derach Oniyah Belev Yam, the way of the ship in the heart of the sea. Not just in the sea, but in the very heart of the sea. The way of the ship in the heart of the sea has to do with Yiddish chesed, or Yiddish goodness. Very similar to the expression Gemilas Chasodim, which also pertains to the external manifestation of a Jew. But there's something special about a Yiddish heart, a Jewish heart at this level of Radlo, which is much more than even simply the fact that a Jew is naturally kind-hearted. It's not just that you're a good guy. There's something more than a Jew being a good. The fact that a Jew is a good guy, that's exactly what the Alter Rebbe says at the end of chapter 1 in Tanya, that is a characteristic that pertains to the Nefesh HaHamis of a Jew. And he must have that characteristic in order to be a Jew. But there's something about a Jewish heart which obviously has to do with kindness. We'll have to try to explain what is it more than just being a good guy. That is Derech Oniyah Belev Yam, is the way of the ship in the heart of the sea. But once more, this is already goodness, a Yiddish hearts at the level of Moshiach. Then comes the last one. Just as the first one sounded very, very strange and outspoken to talk about gaiva as being a positive property and character, Yiddish gaiva, so the same is true of the last one. Just like there's Yiddish gaiva, there's Yiddish taiva. There's Jewish passion. Once more, passion, usually taiva, just as gaiva, appears to be a negative term. But we find twice in Mishlei itself, in Proverbs of Shlomo HaMelech, HaChacham Mikol Adam, that for tzaddikim, taiva is a positive property. One pasuk reads, as is here to the left, Ta'avat tzaddikim achtov, that the taiva of a tzaddik has a passion. That's why if we try to picture now in our minds the Rabbi, so the Rabbi had a passion for Mashiach. And it says about a tzaddik, the taiva of a tzaddik is achtov, it's purely good. It's totally it's a clarified taiva. There's no iota, no bit of badness in the taiva. It's a purely good taiva. That's one verse that it says in Mishlei. Another corresponding verse says, Ta'avat tzadikim yiten, that Hashem gives to the tzaddik his taiva. It means that a tzaddik has to have a taiva, and Hashem gives the tzaddik his deepest existential passion. That's why the two verses. One verse reads, Ta'avat tzadikim achtov, and the other verse reads, Ta'avat tzadikim yiten. Hashem gives the tzaddik his passion, and the passion is intrinsically good. It's a good passion. And so that good passion of a tzaddik, as we'll try to explain what that means, which is the Mashiach. Not only the Mashiach, the one that has the greatest passion for Mashiach. Just once more, think of the Rabbi in relation to Moshiach. The greatest passion for Mashiach, that is this fourth property of Mashiach himself, and that's part of Mashiach, the Mashiach HaKlali. So once more, we have now these four simple terms that we're going to try to feel in ourselves. Yiddish with four essentially Jewish characteristics. The Goy, Lahavdil, can't come close to manifesting in himself any one of these four characteristics. They're purely Jewish, Mashiach Jewish characteristics. That one is Yiddish Gaiva, a certain level of Jewish pride, and the second is Yiddish Chochmah. There's a special, unique type of Jewish wisdom. We'll explain what that is. And then there's a special Yiddish heart, a Lev Yehudi. And the Lev Yehudi is not yet the passion. It's two different things, as we'll not explain. The fourth is, the passion obviously maybe appears within the heart, but it's two different levels. The heart, as we'll see, has to do with the element of mayim here, just as the metaphor says. Derech onia belev yam. The way of the ship in the sea is obviously a water metaphor. Whereas derech gever ba'alma, the way of the gever ba'alma is definitely, as we'll see, an eish. It's just the opposite element. It's a fire property. So maybe let's immediately turn now to the four elements. These four unknowable ways must also reflect the four basic elements, but in a very unique order. It's clear that the Derech HaNesher Bashamayim, the way of the eagle in the heavens, is an air metaphor. So it reflects the Yesod HaRuach. Derech Nachash Alei Tzur, the way of the snake on the rock, is clearly a dust metaphor, an earth metaphor. Yesod HaAfar, as we know that the snake himself was cursed to eat dust. Ki afar tochal. There must be something about Yiddish Chochmah, that Yiddish wisdom eats dust, because it's something like a snake. Derech nachash alei tzur. It lives off of dust. So once more, the second one is definitely a Yesod HaAfar metaphor. The third one, as we said, is clearly Yesod HaMayim, which is Derech Onia belev yam, the ship in the sea. And the fourth is once more clearly and definitely an Eish, where the passion is the passion like fire. And the passion of man and woman is also a fire metaphor. So we have to have all of these four elements at the level of Mashiach. You have to have first, according to the order here, first the air. You have to first breathe the air of Mashiach. The breathing the air of Mashiach is Jewish pride. And then we have to eat the dust of Mashiach. And eating the dust of Mashiach is Jewish wisdom. Then we have to swim in the water of Mashiach. And swimming in that water of Mashiach is Lev Yehudi, Yiddish hearts. And finally, we have to burn with the fire of Mashiach. The burning with the fire of Mashiach is Yiddish passion, Ta'ava Yehudit. So now we have to go back and try to deepen our understanding of these four levels. Who represents the pride of the Jewish people? It's clear that the pride of the people, as the Rambam explains, and it's also Muvan Me'ilav al Pipshat, the king is the pride of the people. Of whom does it say explicitly that Ga'ava, or gavhut, upliftedness of heart, was a positive property. It says so about Yehoshaphat, one of the descendants of King David. Of David Melech Yisrael Chai V'Kayim David Malka Mashiach, Vayigba libo b'darkei Hashem, that his heart was uplifted in the ways of Hashem. The eagle is very often a symbol of kingdom. As we'll see at the very end, the first eagle, neshama, in the Torah is Yaakov Avinu. We know that every Nasi, the upliftedness of a king is the fact that the king is a Nasi, which once more is a very, very important concept that there are many sikhs of the Rabbi to even distinguish between the terms of Melech and Nasi. But the fact that once more that the king experiences and even reflects for the whole people, he is the pride. But he symbolizes, and his crown symbolizes the pride of the whole people. This is the concept of Nasi. And of Gava Libo. About Moshiach, it says this verse that is quoted here, but now I'm reading the corresponding verses that are quoted on the page in front of us. And this page, this chart is supposed to be a kitzur, essential, but just all the major points in the psukim that we're talking about are all depicted here on the page in front of us. So after the Ga'ava Yehudit, what do we have there? We have a verse which reads, Vayikba libo b'darkei Hashem. His heart was uplifted in the ways of Hashem. Of whom does it say that? Of Yehoshaphat, Melech Yehuda. Because of this, he was proud to enact all kinds of legislature regarding Jewish chinuch. It's very interesting to read the story of Yehoshaphat. He was also proud enough to go to war for Jewish causes. And what is say even now? What is the basic problem when I come here especially here to America? So everybody asks, the first question is what's happening in Israel now. What's going to happen? What's going to be with Hebron? What's going to be here with Yeshua? What's happening? What does the whole problem boil down to? What is the one point that it boils down to? It boils down to, it's called Machusa B'lei Tago. There's a government, maybe there's a once more a false imitation of rulership, but it lacks, it's called Machusa B'lo Tago is the expression. It's the Malchus without a crown, it has no crown to it. What does it mean it has no crown to it? There's no Yiddish pride. There's no king, there's no one that once more, we ourselves don't have that Jewish pride, and there's no one of us that can stand up and reflect that Jewish pride and say clearly in a way of Vayikba libo b'darkei Hashem, that his heart is uplifted. Gava libo b'darkei Hashem, and to say that even simple statements like the land of Israel belongs to the people of Israel. V'chulu v'chulu. So this is the clearest identification that the basic thing that we're lacking today is this very first level. The level of derech hanesher b'shamayim. Once more, about Yehoshaphat, it's Vayikba libo b'darkei Hashem. Underneath that pasuk, we have written another pasuk, another phrase, im tagli kanesher. This is a phrase that refers to the Sitra Achra, to the other side. We're just bringing it to identify the concept of gavhut, of upliftedness and going up high, flying high to the sky. It says that a nesher, an eagle, strives to reach the sun. But I'm the greatest and the strongest of the birds, and I can fly so high that I can reach the sun. It just says that the eagle of the other side, the eagle of Klippa, Nebuchadnezzar, the many different figures, persons that correspond to the bad, to the evil eagle, when they fly too high towards the sun, they burn out. and fall into the sea. And then sometimes they're rejuvenated and sometimes not. You can not get into this. But an eagle, in his pride, the pride of the eagle is to fly high, to reach the sun. What is that pride again? This is a pride of Mashiach. Also, Mashiach flies high to reach Shemesh Havaya, to reach the sun, which is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and to bring down that sun into the consciousness of our world. He flies high in danger of being burnt, but he doesn't care. He flies to the sun. The next verse, which is quoted on the following column, is Yarum v'nisa v'gava mod. And this is maybe the most important verse of all in the whole Tanakh and the whole Bible about Mashiach. And it says, Hinei yaskil avdi. It's called the 4 levels of elevation of the Mashiach. Mashiach goes up, it's called the Neiran Chai of Mashiach, the Nefesh Ruach Neshama Chaya Yechidah of the Mashiach. Hinei yaskil avdi is called the Nefesh Mashiach. Yarum is all idioms, all images of going high and being uplifted in himself, in his own consciousness. Once more, rectifying and manifesting, revealing the super-ego of the Jewish people in himself. First, it's Hinei yaskil avdi, which is not yet, the first level is not yet a manifestation of Ga'ava Yehudit. But all of the other 4 levels above the basic level of Nefesh are manifestations of this principle of Ga'ava Yehudit. Yarum, like Ram Levavo Yarum, will go up. V'nisa, like the word Nasi that we were speaking of just now. V'gava, like the phrase of Yehoshaphat, V'yigbali bo b'darkei Hashem, Ma'od, infinitely. Yarum, v'nisa, v'gava ma'od, 4 levels of Ga'ava Yehudit of Melech HaMashiach, of which Yehoshaphat, this king of whom it says, V'yigbali bo b'darkei Hashem, he reached 1 level of V'yigbali bo b'darkei Hashem. But Mashiach reaches all of these 4 levels. And what does it mean for us? It's very simple. Mashiach, what is Mashiach here in Crown Heights at this level? Is walking down the street. Think of how the Rabbi walked down the street. He walked as a king. He was a king. He is a king. Because the king is walking. When a king walks, you see that this is the king walking. But it's not just it's a king with a crown. It's not like we said the false imitation. False imitation is called a king without a crown. Malchusa b'leitag. But there's a king with a crown. But this is every one of us, if we're connected, be iskashos. And again, this month of Shvat is iskashos to the Rebbe. So we have to try to manifest in ourselves these Mashiach, these 4 unknowable ways of Mashiach in our own life. Number 1 is Jewish pride. And Jewish pride means a lot of things. It means things here in Chutz La'aretz. When you act different, if you're a proud Jew in Crown Heights, you act different than if chas v'sholom, you're not a proud Jew. Kol sheken v'kal v'chomer in Eretz Yisrael, if we're proud Jews, the whole political scene is totally 100% different than if we're Nebech Jews, chas v'sholom. Which is, unfortunately, again, if the question is asked, what is the problem? This is the problem. Whether a Jew is a Nebech, or whether a Jew is an eagle character, an eagle flying high in the sky. His way unknowable. You can't predict an eagle with all of these characters. You can't predict them, and you can't even know where they came from. Because they're all reflecting and manifesting Radlo, which is the source of Mashiach. About Ruach, once more on the other side, bad Ruach is called Ruach Gevo'ah. But et zelu umat ze asai Elokim, as that's what we have written here. But this is the ultimate Moshiach rectification of the element of air, of wind, ruach. The bad counterpart is called ruach gvoah, but the good counterpart, of which it says meruba midat tova midat puranut, is also kol sheken v'kavachomer ruach gvoah, an uplifted spirit. This word air, as we know in Hebrew, means spirit, in the sense of spirituality. And that spirit, that ruach, has to be an uplifted spirit. This is number one. This is called the Keter of Radlo, which is Derech HaNesher Bashamayim. The first Jew that reflects the Nesher is Yaakov Avinu, who in the Merkavah, in the divine chariot, he corresponds to the Nesher, to the eagle. And Chazal darshan about Yaakov, that he, in relation to his children, behaves, he's Rachaman, says that the eagle is merciful on his children. Kanesher Ya'ir Kino Al Gozalav Yirachef. Chazal darshan on Yaakov Avinu. It's very interesting that in the blessings, last week we read in the Torah about Yaakov blessing his children. In the blessings, he doesn't bless anyone as an eagle. You know, an eagle is a very, very strong image. And you might expect that maybe Judah should be blessed as an eagle. Judah is blessed as a lion. We have the lions. We have there a snake. And Dan is blessed to be a snake. Yidan Nachash Alei Derech. And we have there a deer. And we have a wolf. But we don't have explicitly in the blessings that are all chayot, explicitly in the blessings of the children of Yaakov Avinu, the Shvatim, the Yud-Bet, Shiftei, we do not find an eagle. Who's the eagle? It says that Yaakov himself is the eagle. In his blessing to his children and giving them the powers of the different animals. And Rashi, we all certainly learn Chitas, and we know that Rashi says that even those tribes that he didn't bless as animals, he gave them all the powers of the animals. Chazar v'kalalan kulan. Meaning that from Rashi, it's also clear that the essential strength of the blessings is given this strength of the animals, eres the tail. And all of them got all of the explicit animals. Who is he himself who's blessing? He is the great, called the Nesher Hagadol, the great eagle, blessing his children to be animals. So it's just like here in our understanding, our meditation of Radlo, that the great eagle, this is the term, it's called Nesher Hagadol, the great eagle is the Keter of Radlo, which is the source of blessing even within Radlo itself. In the next one, the Nachash, and afterwards the Oniyah Derech Oniyah B'Lev Yam, and then finally the Derech Gever B'Alma, are all in a certain way emerged and blessed by the great eagle hovering above all of them. Kanesher Ya'ir Kino Al Gozalav Yirachef. So what we actually did now is we read all of the concepts that correspond to the first level, which is the Derech HaNesher B'Shamayim, that once more we're trying to get across the sense, and to integrate into ourselves the sense that this is the Jewish pride of Melech HaMashiach. The next one is Jewish wisdom. We know that the Jews are smart people, but obviously there must be something much, much deeper. We can even say that smartness, just that Jews have native intelligence. Just like the Alter Rebbe said that those native properties of Rachmanos and Baishonos and Gemilas Chasodim apply and reflect the Nefesh Bahamis. So in the same way, the fact that Jews have native intelligence, that reflects the Nefesh HaSichlis of a Jew, not necessarily the Nefesh HaElokis of a Jew. The fact that from the Jewish people have been born Einsteins, that comes from the Nefesh HaSichlis, which if the Nefesh HaBahamis of the Jew is special and unique, obviously Kol Sheken, the Nefesh HaSichlis of the Jew is special. But now we're talking about the Nefesh Elokis, not just the Nefesh Elokis. Not the revealed conscious level of Nefesh Elokis. Radlo, the origin of Moshiach in the Nefesh Elokis. So how can we try to feel and describe Yiddish Chochmah to be a smart, a clever, cunning Jew at that level? So here the parable for it is a snake. How do we know that a snake represents wisdom? Why is it clear that the snake, just like the eagle, represents pride? Much more pride, and paradoxically, Rachmanas on its own children. But the high-flying eagle in the sky is obviously a symbol of pride, the pride of the king. How do we know that a snake, so before we said that sometimes in Chazal a fox represents cunning. Where do we see that a snake represents wisdom? So it's clear that this is from the very beginning of the Torah. The very, very first story in the Torah is Adam and Eve. Adam and Chava v'Gan Eden. There was a snake. Who was the snake? How does this player, like in a play, in a movie, how does he appear on the stage? What is the first phrase that it says about the snake? How does God introduce the snake? He introduces him by saying, "V'anachash haya'aru," that the snake was cunning. So it's more than clear, than even more so than the fox. The snake is the ultimate, absolute metaphor of cunning. Here it's obviously in a bad sense. But as we said before, Bereisha chashocha v'adar nohora. Things often, or generally, especially the deepest things in the Torah, first appear on the other side, and then have to be converted and transformed, metamorphosized to the good side. But the concept of orma can either be naked, stripped off, or the deepest sense of shrewdness and cunning. V'hanachash haya'aru. Just after, in the very second verse, just after the previous verse that it says that Adam and Eve were naked, then it says that the snake was cunning, using the very same root, which is obviously called lashon nofer al lashon. The most important verse in Mishlei is once more. This is all coming from Mishlei, from the Proverbs, the wisdom of King Solomon, of Shlomo HaMelech, that cunning is the deepest manifestation of wisdom, is the verse which is quoted here. Well, there are two verses actually. One verse reads, Ani chochma shachanti orma. I am wisdom, I dwell in this naked cunning. And that's the basic verse. And underneath is the verse that we just quoted about V'anachash haya'aru. But next to it, on the other side, is a phrase from Chazal, from the sages, that also uses the most important phrase that employs this word of cunningness in a positive context. It says that a Jew, everyone should be arum biyira, should be cunning and naked in fear, in one's fear and awe in the face of Hashem. Once more, the most basic verse in Mishlei is this verse, Ani chochma shachanti orma. I am wisdom, I dwell within, under the true wisdom. Who is speaking in this verse? The Torah is speaking. In Mishlei, there are many chapters that the Torah speaks as though in the first person. And here the Torah is speaking, the Torah says, Ani chochma, I am wisdom, I dwell within cunning. Shachanti orma. And there are many, many drushim and chasidus of all of the Rabbi that explains that orma is much deeper. The term orma is much, much infinitely deeper than stam chokhmah. Ani chokhmah shachanti orma. Sometimes it says that chokhmah is chokhmah gluyana, orma is chokhmah stima, or chokhmah at the level of keter, of the chitenius of keter. Now we're talking about chokhmah at the level of pnimius to pnimius haketer, of pnimius atik. which is Radlo. Once more, from the Drushei Chasidut itself, that level is Orma, which is personified by the snake. What was the wisdom? How did the wisdom of the snake express itself? And this we can learn now. What is Jewish wisdom? What does it mean to be wise? And also to get a little bit of a hint of why all of these Moshiach levels have femininity to them. Even though some of them appear to be very male, especially the last one. But we said that it begins with Arba lo yeda'atim, just like Arba mi yodea, Arba imahot. It's explained in Hasidus that the deepest wisdom of a Jew is the wisdom to seduce God. A Jew is able to be seduced by God, that's called Yonah Pota, but a Jew has the power in his wisdom and in his prayer even, as it were, nitzchuni banai nitzchuni, to seduce Ribono Shel Olam, the creator of the universe. What do we want to seduce Hashem for? Because we have the wisdom. We don't need to be wise and cunning. Let's get back to the political scene. Like a political snake on the other side. What does it mean to be wise? To be wise means to be able to be so shrewd that you can succeed in your mesima, to achieve, to attain what you want through, as it were, almost tricking the other side. It's like playing a game. It says that King Solomon, one of the things about King Solomon, that it says in Chazal that he invented chess. A few weeks ago there was a night that the Rabbi used to play chess at one time. And that game of chess, it says, was invented by Shlomo HaMelech. And so in Chassidus there are 3 different levels of winning a chess game. You either win because you know how to make the proper moves, you know how to react properly. If you the other side, the enemy made this move, it's like making political moves. If you made this move, I make this move. Because I know exactly how to react. That's the lowest level of playing chess. If there's a higher level than that, is that I already foretell, I can guess, as it were, what move you're going to make. And I already make my moves knowing, so to speak, guessing what you have in mind, what your move is going to be. That's more than just reacting to move against move. But then there's the ultimate level of chess, which we're going to explain that it has to do with Shlomo HaMelech, his wisdom derived from Yosef HaTzaddik's wisdom, which is not just a guessing, but it's guessing at such a level that actually you're programming the other side. That you're actually, this is a modern word, but this also is like something like conscious determination. That not just that you're guessing what his move is going to be, but you're actually programming him to make a certain move. That's the highest level that's the highest shrewdness. It's also called a guess. We know that Yosef HaTzaddik, at this level, this whole level of the snake has to do now, what we're going to explain has to do with Yosef HaTzaddik, who's the son of Yaakov, the greatest of the children of Yaakov. It's called Ben Skunim. What is Ben Skunim? Bar Hakim. He is the wise. He represents all of the wisdom of his father Yaakov. When the 2 Sarim of Paro, the Sarah Mashkin and the Sarah Ofim dreamt, so he solved their dreams. And just as he solved their dreams, so did it come about that the Sarah Mashkim was returned to his position, and the Sarah Haofim was hung. Kasher patar lahem Yosef, just as Joseph had solved the dreams. The simple reading is that he just knew what the dream meant, just as it was the case afterwards when he told Paro his dreams. But the deeper meaning that is explained in Chassidus and Kabbalah Chassidus is that through his solving the dream, he made it happen. Whereas he solved it just the way he wanted it to be. And he was actually consciously determining if had he solved it otherwise, it was his power. It was in the power of Joseph to solve the dream just as he wills. Had he willed to solve the dream otherwise, it would have turned out otherwise. So he's not just reading. There's a certain level of wisdom that you're just reading. You know how to read properly the scene. There's a much deeper level of wisdom, not just reading the map, the political map. You're not just reading things properly. If a person reads things properly, they're also very wise, and usually he will be successful in obtaining his end. But it's much deeper that you're not just reading the map, but you're actually determining. But the question is, what about the dream itself? Who made them dream the dream? The fact that Yosef, once more, not only did he know how to read the dream, but through his solution, his pitaron, he actually made it happen just as he wanted. But who dreamt them? Where did the dream come from? So again, you wouldn't say that Yosef was there in the cell. They were all in a prison. They were in a prison cell together. The dream came from Hashem. Also, there are many drashot of Chazal. The dream, God gave them the dream, and then Joseph just came and had to solve the dream. According to the second interpretation, we said Hashem gave Joseph the power to solve the dream as he wants. But actually, it says even deeper than that. It says that the dream came from the Mazlei Chazi of Yosef himself. At the superconscious, once more, the superconscious, the Radlo level of the soul of Yosef, that itself is God making them, giving them the dream. And then the conscious level of Yosef comes and solves the dream. And solves the dream just exactly as he wants. But at his own superconscious level, he himself is programming the dream. We're trying to relate this just as we said, the three levels of playing chess. That you're either reading the board correctly, or you have some type of intuition and foreknowledge, and through that you're making moves in advance to protect yourself and to ultimately win. Or there is a certain level which is generally unconscious. But in order for Moshiach to come, we have to make it conscious, this level of wisdom, which is actually programming the other side. But for a politician to say that I am actually programming the enemy, that is a very, very outstanding, that takes a lot of chutzpah, of yiske, a lot of guts to be able to even think of such a level. But this is a level that has to be reached, I say, on the political scene, also for Moshiach to come. This is wisdom. Now we even get a sense of how this level of wisdom is the first offshoot, as it were, the first manifestation after the level of Keter. From the Jewish pride comes this Jewish wisdom. But the wisdom of the snake in the Garden of Eden was in a certain way programming Eve. And then it says that through seducing Eve, that he was programming Eve in a bad way. He knew that she would then go ahead take it one stage further and seduce her husband. He says that he can seduce her, but she knows how to seduce her husband. So first he programmed her, and then she programmed Adam. And that was the fall, the primordial fall of mankind. So we know that the whole idea of Moshiach is the rectification of this. The rectification of what took place in the Garden of Eden. And the rectification of that begins with the rectification of the shrewdness, which ultimately the very, very highest level of Chochmah D'Radlo is the ability to program the other. Before we said it's actually to seduce God, because we are the wife. We said this is a feminine principle. We are the Kala, we are the wife of God. It's one of it's the whole metaphor of Shir HaShirim, the whole parable of Shir HaShirim. And we, the wisdom of a Jew, even in prayer, if you look, it's very, very interesting, whoever wants to understand this deeper, to look at the end of Keser Shem Tov. You know from the Rabbi that every Jew, especially every Chassid, should have and should look every day at 3 Sforim, Keser Shem Tov, the Baal Shem Tov, and the Torah of the Maggid, and the Tanya of the Alter Rebbe. At the end, look at the end of the original Keser Shem Tov, you'll find there Torot from the Baal Shem Tov, which are all as a attorney, as it were legally, through the psukim, through the verses of the Torah, praying to God, but praying in a sense of proving to God, as it were, or seducing even stronger. This concept, what do we find? Again, seems like a very, very outspoken idiom to seduce God. Where do we find such a term? We find in the Rosh Hashanah, in the Machzor. In the Rosh Hashanah davening, we find the expression that with the shofar, with our blowing the shofar, on Rosh Hashanah is also the highest level of Jewish wisdom. It says that blowing the shofar is chokhmah v'lo melacha. It's wisdom, it's not work, it's wisdom to blow the shofar. And about that in the Machzor it says that by blowing the shofar on Rosh Hashanah, afatenu b'shofar, I will seduce him, I will seduce God with the shofar. This is the original nusach, this is the nusach that we say, that Hasidim say, that we seduce God with the wisdom of blowing the shofar. The shofar is a mitzvah. Hashem Amar, Hashem Rachmana Omar, Rachmana said, Hashem said, blow the shofar, so we have to blow the shofar. The Chazal say that the inner essence of blowing the shofar on Rosh Hashanah, mitzvat hayom shofar, is manifesting ultimate Jewish wisdom. It's as though with that shofar blast we're also programming God for the whole year to come. How He is going to act towards us. How He is going to judge us. Mishpat le'elokei Yaakov, as explained in Chassidut. That the judgment is how much Elokut, Elokei Yaakov, how much Getlichkeit is going to be revealed to us throughout the whole year. And that we determine that in accordance with how well, how smart we are in our seduction, Kiviyachol, of Ribono Shel Olam, with the shofar blast on Rosh Hashanah. This is all to try to get a sense of what wisdom and Jewish wisdom and snake, like the rectification of the snake, the primordial seducer with his mind, what that ultimate rectification is at the level of Moshiach. Once for every single Jew, every one of us has deep down this Yiddish wisdom. Right, so actually now we did most of the things here. And it says Arum B'Yirah. Actually we didn't say this one phrase. Chazal used this word Arum in relation to awe. Awe, as we know, is Yarei Bullshit. The highest level of awe is the Bitul B'Mtziut of Chokhmah. And here we're talking about Chokhmah D'Radla. So this is just a phrase which identifies Arum also with the deepest level of Chokhmah, which is Yirah or Bitul B'Mtziut, of which it says Yarei Bullshit. Seiruf Otiyot, the permutation of the letters of Breshit, which is translated in the Targum Yerushalmi as B'Chokhmah. maybe one more thing. We said that the snake is dust. What does it mean to eat dust? What is the wisdom? What does this wisdom come from? Ki afar ata ve'el afar tashuv. This ultimate wisdom to program reality comes from a consciousness of Hakol hayamin ha'afar v'hakol shav el ha'afar. Ki afar ata ve'el afar tashuv. You came out of the dust, and you shall return to the dust. All was from the dust, and all shall return to the dust. Afiru galgal chama is the expression of Chazal. The ultimate wisdom is to see that everything, even the other elements, all derived from the earth, and all return to the earth. Dor holech v'dor ba v'ha'aretz le'olam omedet. It's a wisdom which feels the unchangeable origin and end of all created reality in the afar. You eat, you're sustained intellectually by the consciousness of the dust, and how you, the human being, were dust, came out of the dust, and shall return to the dust. You know that the Baal Shem Tov used to say that had he so desired, he could have gone up to heaven and fire just like Elijah, Eliyahu Novi. Why? He chose to die. Why? Because he wanted to fulfill the verse, Ki afar ata ve'el afar tashuv. That the fulfillment of that verse, that you came out of the dust and you shall return to the dust, is infinitely deeper than going up to heaven and fire and never dying like Eliyahu Novi. So there's something about the consciousness of seeing everything reflected in the dust, everything coming out of the dust, everything going back to the dust, that is the origin of where the wisdom of a Jew comes from, even his ultimate wisdom, which is ability to program reality. This is the rectification of the dust of the snake, of the primordial snake. Why is this Yosef? Let's now read the side here. Because Yosef, besides all the dreams, the solutions of the dreams that we mentioned before, Yosef is the one and only one tzaddik, the ultimate tzaddik in the Torah, of whom it says that the verb is the same as nachash, a snake, but it means to guess. Nachesh yenachesh ish asher kamon. He says about himself that I shall surely guess, and there are two levels of guessing. Just like we were talking about before, playing guess. There's one level just of guessing ahead. There's a higher, superconscious level. It's called Nachesh Yenachesh Ish Asher Kamoni. And this is the verse about Yisrael Tzaddik, which is not just guessing, but it's guessing in such a way that you're actually programming what's going to happen, what the other side, what his move, his next move, and all of his moves are going to be. Right, now comes the third one. The third one is Derech Oniyav Levyam, which is, we call it here the Yiddish hearts. We're trying to, what is special, as we said before, I can't just be that a Jew is a good guy. Just as we said before, that the Yiddish Chochmah is not just that a Jew is a smart guy. What does it mean, Derech Oniyav Levyam? The simple thing, and this there are even sikhs of the Rabbi that talk about this, that the ultimate Jewish goodness is that he places himself in danger in order to do a favor to some other Jew. There's even a sugi in halacha. Whether if a Jew, you see another Jew drowning, and if you jump into the river, you're not sure that you're going to make it, because the river is turbulent. But for you, it's a sakana. If it's not a sakana for you to jump into the river to save him, then you have to. If you don't, Chaz Hashem, you're doing an aver of leitamid adam re'echa. But what about the case that it's dangerous for you yourself? You don't know, it's a sophic of what's going to be. And Odom Kolov Eitzel Atzmei, the Chayecho Kedmin. These are principles in the Torah, even though this machlekes, even in Chazal there's a machloket whether Chayecho Kedmin. Nonetheless, in general, this is the way we pass it. But the Alter Rebbe himself in the Shulchan Aruch says that the Chatchila on it, you don't know for sure, it's a sophic. That you can put yourself in danger to save another Jew, and once more the classic example in the Halakha itself, in the Shulchan Aruch itself, is jumping into the water in order to save another Jew that's drowning. So a Chosei even endangers himself. But Midas Chasidus, which is obviously the midah of the Moshiach, is that you actually endanger your own life physically and spiritually in order to do a goodness, something good for another. It's not just being a good guy when it's easy to be a good guy. It's being a good guy when it's hard, when it's really hard to be a good guy. Once more, when it's mamash nogea to your own pikuach nefesh. The image for that is the image of the ship. The ship is the soul in the body going into the depth, the heart of the turbulent sea, once more, in order to save souls that are there drowning in the sea. Because the sea itself represents, the Yam itself represents Knesset Yisrael, all of the Jewish souls. And here the ship is going into the heart of the sea, and it's very dangerous for the ship. Nonetheless, that's what it does. That's the derech oni abelev yam. Let's read here what it says. There's a famous expression at the end of Maseches Kiddushin in the Mishnah itself. Chazal say that different livelihoods are conducive to different characteristics. Very, very uniquely and specially, Chazal say that sailors are the greatest Hasidim in the world. In general, they say that Sapanim, Rubam Hasidim. Most sailors are Hasidim. Why? Rashi explains why. Rashi, again, once, but this is a Mishnah. Is the highest level that a parnosa, a livelihood, brings you to. Why? So Rashi says because a sailor is always continuously putting his life at stake. He's always putting his life at nature, and that produces in him, Rashi explains, it produces in Shvirat Halev, that his heart is always broken, and he once more naturally cries out to Hashem, even unconsciously. And that's why he's a chosid. Because since he's always putting his life in danger, so his heart is broken to the state that he cries out to Hashem. This broken of the heart that cries to the Hashem, spante, or naturally, natively, is the tikkun of this word oniyah. The word for a ship in Hebrew is from the same root as ani. Before, when we were talking about the nesher, we talked about the super ego, like ani emloch, the expression of Yiddish pride. There's the Yiddish heart is also a very famous expression in Hasidus, especially the Rabbi Rabbi used to quote this all the time. That the Yiddish heart is a leiv nishbar, and there's no more complete, consummately complete vessel than a broken heart. So Rashi says the pshat of how does one have this the true vessel. This is the tikkun of the conscious I. Once more, on the ship means I, ani, and the rectification of that ship is that it's devoted. It has so much avos Yisrael, and so devoted to another Jew that he puts once more his life at stake, always to help his people in general, and every one of his friends, of Kol Yisrael Chaverim, another Jew in particular. So there are two ideas here. One idea is that he is in this way rectifying the inner I, the inner ani. And once more, this is what Rashi says, that the sailors are Hasidim because they have a broken heart. because they're putting themselves in danger. And it's something, it's like an automatic psychological phenomenon. And that's why sailors are sapanim, rubam chasidim. So once more, this characteristic is the Moshiach good heart, the Moshiach Yiddish heart characteristic. Who represents that? The Moshe Rabbeinu. Min hamayim l'shitiu. He is the rectification of Jewish water, that he was drawn out of the water, just like either a dog, a fish from the sea, or here we said that throughout the Sefer HaZohar and Kabbalah Chasidus, it says that a neshama in a guf, once for putting himself in danger for his people, was not thinking about himself. There's a famous expression that who is a chosid? We know there's a sikh of the Rabbi about Hasidim Seirfon. Hasidim burn their fingernails. What is a chosid? One of the most famous sikhs of the Rabbi. A chosid is a person that first thinks about the welfare of someone else before the welfare of himself. He doesn't even take to mind his own personal welfare. He's always thinking about someone else's welfare, even at the expense of his own welfare. Because he doesn't really care. It's not on his mind. And that's the Moshiach good heart. It's called Binah Binah is also Liba, Binah Liba, the heart, the Binah Liba at the level of Radlo. Right, the last one is the Das of Radlo, which is Derech Gever B'Amo, Ta'ava Yehudit. What is the Jewish passion? The Jewish passion, as it says here, the famous quotation was again one of the most basic things in the whole of Hasidus, the whole Sefer Tanya of the Alter Rebbe, that the ultimate reason that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world was also because of Taiva. There's a mitzvah, the Hidamot Ilav. One of the greatest mitzvot in the Torah is to be like, to emulate God. How does one emulate God more than any other form of emulating God? Chazal say that Ma'urachum apatarachum, just like He is merciful, you be merciful. What is the greatest, deepest emulation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu of Hashem? Hashem had an unknowable, and what is the most unknowable thing about Hashem? There's also a famous quotation of the Alter Rebbe, is the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu had an unknowable, means His reason was unknowable, passion to create the world. What was his? This is the Lashon. Nis'ava HaKadosh Baruch Hu li yesh leidiro b'tachtein. Maimer Chazal. This is one of the foundations, the greatest foundation of all of Hasidus, Sefer Tanya. That Hashem had a passion to create the world. When you ask why, He had a passion. Why did He have a passion? You can't. It's an illegitimate question to ask why He had that passion. So a taiva is kinkasha, meaning that this passion, once more, this passion comes from Radlo. If it's not legitimate to ask the question why He had that passion, it means that it must come from Radlo, from the level of Moshiach. Of Reisha Delo Yadav Lo Yadav. In Radlo, where is that passion coming from? It's the das of Radlo. It's the passion of Derech Geber Bama. What is the passion? Dira B'Tachtoni Ishto Zo Beito, Beito Zo Ishto. What does it mean that Hashem had a passion to have a dwelling place? A dwelling place is His wife. Beito Zo Ishto, the house, the dwelling place is the wife. Who is the wife? The wife of the Jewish people. This is what it says throughout Hasidus. When it says that Hashem wanted a Dira B'Tachtenim, He dafka wanted it in the Jewish soul and the Jewish people, not just the world at large. The Dira B'Hakadosh Baruch Hu B'Tachtenim is Neshomas Yisrael, Jewish souls in Jewish bodies. And once more, there's exactly the concept of Beito Zo Ishto, that his house, his dwelling place, is his wife. So just like at the level of the snake, which is the level of the power of seduction, the wisdom, we said that the basic wisdom to seduce is that of the woman to the man. But the passion, the original passion, is the passion of Hashem to create the world in order to have a dwelling place below. And the Tzaddik emulates, and this is the greatest thing, that this is the Tzaddik at the once part of the level of Moshiach, who represents, this is King David. David HaMelech Mashiach ben David. That he is called Nu'um HaGever Hu Kam Al. He is called the Gever. The verse, what does the verse say? Derech Gever Ba'alma. The passion of the Gever in the Alma. Here, male and female, there are special words used, Gever and Alma, that we won't explain exactly what they are, but that word Gever explicitly refers to David HaMelech. Because of him it says, Nu'um HaGever Hu Kam Al. And the fact that Hukam Al means that he was like also one of the readings of that Hukam Al, that there are many readings in Chazal and Chasidus, is that he is able to emulate in his passion. It seemed to sin with passion. It's called Chet Bat Sheva. But Kol Omer David Chata Ino Ela To'eh. But in any event, he represents the same, in a certain way, the same passion that Hashem had to create the world, to have a dwelling place below, which is to have a wife below. In the very, very same way did David HaMelech, who come out and express that passion for Hashem. What does it say about a chosid? The highest level of chosid is brought in throughout Chasidus, even quoted in Hayom Yom. Ezu chasid hamitchased im kono liyach da kuchabrichu shchinde b'tachteni. That a true chosid doesn't have a passion for himself. His passion is God's passion. But he below, in next, that's why it says, Tavat tzadikim achtov, that the whole passion of his life is like a shadchan, is to bring the groom and the bride together. To bring God to marry his bride, who is Jewish souls and Jewish bodies down below in this world. That is the passion, the ultimate passion of the Tzaddik. And once more, if it's clarified that it's not him at all, it's just Ezu Chasid Hamitchased im Kono, Liachto Kuchabrich Shechinte, there's expression kan delay. Kono means his master, it also means the nest. That the master shall be united with his nest, which is Liachto Kuchabrich Shechinte Betachtonim. Mitchased im Kono im kan delay, that's the phrase. All for the sake of being Miyached Kuchabrich Shechinte Betachtonim. That is the rectification of that is the passion of the Tzaddik, truly and absolutely emulating the passion of Hashem. Once more, that is personified by David HaMelech. What element is that? That's the element of fire. Just like it says about Ish v'Isha that we have written here. That the common letters in man and woman are fire and fire. It's just that each one has an additional letter. That the Ish has the Yud, and the Hey, the Isha, the woman has the Hey, and if they merit, the Shekhinah dwells between them, which is these two letters, Yud Kei, the name of Hashem. But as explained throughout Chassidut, that does not mean that the Eish, the essential letters of the name of the Eish, that they don't disappear, they remain there. Just that Eish becomes holy fire. Otherwise, if they don't have the two letters of Hashem's name, Yud Kei, then the fire becomes profane passion. Profane fire. The profane passion becomes profane anger. Fire also represents anger on the other side. And the fire burns them up. That's what it says. That if the man and the woman do not merit, then the fire, which becomes profane fire, burns up, chas v'sholom, the household. But if they merit, then the Shekhinah is between them. And once more, the Shekhinah between them doesn't mean that the fire disappears, just the opposite. They explain Reishis Chochmah. Every bride and groom is supposed to learn a certain chapter in Reishis Chochmah before they get married. The Rebbe is from the Rebbe, also very, very much held that every couple that gets married, and if you're already married and you didn't learn it, now's the time to learn it. Learn a certain chapter that you can ask afterwards what that chapter is in Reishis Chochmah. It's the most important thing for a bride and a groom to learn. What is the essence of that chapter in Reishis Chochmah? The essence is how through a marriage that Shekhinah Binehem, how the fire becomes holy, how the passion becomes holy. It doesn't disappear, but the passion becomes holy. And that is exactly the same here in this fourth level of Mashiach, which is the level of Derech Gever Bi'alma, which is once more the ability to emulate that unknowable passion of Hashem in the creation of the world, in order to have, as it were, a mate, which is this concept of Dira V'Tachtonim is the ultimate and absolute mate, Kivyachol HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. It says in Zohar Echad, Hashem is only one when there is a yichud, a union, as it were, in divinity of male and female. Only then is Hashem one. As it says, V'davak b'yishto v'ayulo basar echad. That's why we don't say Hashem Yachid. You say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. The Echad is Ach Dalet. Is Rak Ba'atar, only in a place where there is a union of, just as this union in Kedusha, of Derech Gever Ba'alma. That is the Da'at. The Das is the connection, is Kashrus at the level of Radha. It's the Tikkun of the Yesod of fire, of Eish. Again, if we would meditate, we don't now have the time, why the elements go in this order. This is a very strange order for the elements to proceed in. Usually the elements are Armah, first fire, and then Ruach, and then Mayim, and finally Afar. There are many, many different ways that the elements order themselves. This is a very, very unknowable, strange order. But it's clear that this is the correspondence. So of this I say, and there are obviously many, many other things here to speak about. Ten l'chacham v'yichkam od. It's one of the things that we should try to meditate, why the elements here at this very highest level of Radha are in this order of Ruach, Afar, Mayim, Esh, and not as in general, Esh, Ruach, Mayim, Afar, or sometimes Mayim, Esh, Ruach, Afar. The clue that I'll just say is that the Tziruf of Shem Havaya in this level is V'haya. It's Vav Ke Yud Ke. This level of the elements is the seventh, like Kol Hashvin Chavivin, the seventh of the 12 permutations of Hashem's name, which is the permutation of Chodesh Tishrei, Chodesh Hashvi'i, of which Chazal say, En V'haya El Lashon Simcha. And Mashiach, with this word will conclude. You know that Mashiach has with Simcha, with being happy. Because Mashiach is Otiot Yismach, Yismach Yisrael B'osav, Yismach Hashem B'ma'asav. Hashem is happy with us, that's called Mashiach ben Yosef. We're happy with Hashem, that's called Mashiach ben David. The word, the Seiruf of Hashem's name, Yud Kei Vav Kei, which means happiness, is the Seiruf V'haya. The Tziruf is the seventh of the 12 permutations. The permutation is the month of Tishrei. Nisan is the straight writing of Hashem's name, Yud Kei Vav Kei. But Tishrei is Vav Kei Yud Kei V'haya. And the order of that permutation is the order here of the elements. In Radla, Ruach, then Afar. Ruach is the Vav. Afar is the Hey, the final Hey. Mayim and Esh are the Yud and the Hey of Hashem's name. So it means that once more something intrinsic about Mashiach, about the tzeduk of the elements at this level of Radla, which hu lo omer simcha, it all says happiness. So the conclusion of this whole talk this evening is that these four unknowable ways are the four essential characteristics of Mashiach, both the Mashiach HaPrati, the spark of Mashiach in every Jew, and certainly the Mashiach HaKlali. Once more, just thinking, we can obviously see in our mind all of these characters as reflected by the Rabbi who we know, Baruch Hashem, a little bit. And Efes Katzeo, the Jewish pride and the Jewish wisdom and the Jewish heart, which is once more there's even one phrase that I didn't say. What does Jewish heart mean? It means Mesirus Nefesh for Ayid. That's what a Jewish heart is. This whole idea of the Sapanim Rubam Chasidim, that he puts himself in danger, means that a Jew, a Mashiach Jew, has Mesirus Nefesh, and always has Mesirus Nefesh, Mamish, for another Jew. That's the Oni'ah, the Leviam. And then finally, this concept of all of one's passion being that very passion of God, the groom, uniting with Am Yisrael, the bride, Batachtonim, in souls, in bodies, in this world, in this physical world. And so let's conclude then with that and say, the Chaim that we should give Zeichet to. The Rabbi said we have to learn about Moshiach, talk about Inyanim Moshiach, to try to incorporate and integrate these fundamentals, which every one of us should have this, beginning with the Jewish pride. As we walk out of this room as a king, and the whole Jewish people should feel that we're kings. And then we can have that, we can program, we should know that with our kingship we can program the whole world. And to have Mesirus Nefesh for Am Yisrael, for every Jew. And ultimately to fulfill Hashem's unknowable passion in the creation of this world, which is Hagula Ha'amitit V'Ashlema Yedei Moshiach Tzidkenu Miyad Mamash. Now maybe it's simply said that Moshiach, that the whole thing boils down to being happy, and that's the Unterste Shura. So let's maybe have another few in Nigunim to make us happy.